Hello and welcome to the Dailies, our number one program on news and current affairs, where we keep you updated with what is happening from the papers. A lot of stories are dropping. We've seen still on the issue of the presidential tribunal, the APC to open up its case by 30th of June, and then Labour Party and PDP, their hearing to end tomorrow. And then still we are having where it is in the tradition of military to send some generals, retiring or parking, however you see it. So these and many other stories are what we will be looking at on the paper this morning. I am Sarah Elisha Dasherman. Of course, I have Rachel Tanzi with me. Good morning. We're live on Facebook and on YouTube. Please do well to drop your comment or your contribution on any story that is of interest to you. And as is our tradition, later on the program, we will open the phone line so we can allow you to air your views on stories that are of interest to you this morning. And we will be moving straight into the paper, starting with the metrics.
On the Matrix newspaper, Autumn debunks report of arrest by EFCC. Embattled MFLA challenges DSS detention in court. You can find the details on page 9. Silver snubs Saudi deal backer PSG king. You can find the details for our sports lover on page 10. At decoration ceremony, acting IGP Alberto Kun vows to devour all internal enemies of Nigeria. And the big story on the Matrix newspaper, presidential poll, Tinubu to open defense June 30. Then the writer flowing the story, Atiku Obi closed case Friday. Court says no proof existed. Labour Party issued subpoena on recs for electoral documents. Peter Obi asking for non-existent documents against president coming from INEC. Witness says no glitch on INEC server during presidential election. You can find the details on page 2. Tinubu arrives France for 2-day summit on new global financing pact. Titanic submersible missing craft has about 40 hours of breathable air left. Absence of economic management team responsible for policy dislocation. Coming from an ex-minister, you can find the details on page 15. At the downside of the paper, federal government exempts NDLEA NAFDAC from board dissolution. You can find the details on page 3. We have a picture story, All Hail the new IG. Vice President Kashim Shettima decorates the new acting Inspector General of Police Kayode Bertokun at the presidential villa yesterday. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
On the leadership newspaper on Tribunal, Atiku PDP reduce weakness to 30, close case tomorrow. You can find that story on page 6 of the leadership newspaper. Kanu needs for surgery, lawyer tells the court. And then on fact check, we have Sokoto governor pays unscheduled visit to hospital. Naira falls further, closes at 770.38 to a dollar. You can find detail of that story on page 2. $60 billion Africa Bank asset base, more funding for Nigeria and others. You can find detail of that story on the front page and inside the paper. On the 10th National Assembly, battle shift to reps principal officers with detail found on page 7. EFCC squeeze Autumn over alleged fraud. You can find that story on page 19. Editors recommit to defend democracy. And a suspended CBN Governor Emefiele knows fate July 13. You can find that story on page 12. The big story on the news, serving chiefs. Military tradition sent 40 generals packing. With the writer, I will inject new blood into nation security architecture, coming from an expert. I will chase criminals like a tiger, coming from the acting IGP. And we have the picture story showing the during the funeral of the Dark Communication founder Raymond Topiski Jr. We can see his family members in Abuja yesterday. So you can do well to grab the leadership and read detail of story that is of interest to you.
On the Vanguard newspaper, value of federal government bonds down to 93.2% to 183 billion naira. We are committed to press freedom, defense of democracy, coming from editors. NDLEA General Ogunwe Porter Novel congratulate Eze and Alba. You can find the details on page 33. Why we oppose Nnamdi Kanu's request for access to his medical records, coming from DSS. I feel like Tiger ready to devour criminals, statement coming from the acting IGP Alberto Kun. You can find more details of his statement on page 9. The big story on Vanguard newspaper: anxiety as ex-depot petrol price rises to 490 naira per litre. The writer flowing the story: retail price rises to 515 naira. Major marketers live at 446.57 naira per litre. Regulators unavailable at filling stations. PMS now for the rich, statement coming from the NLC. The regulation drives change in price, coming from Ipman. We are still in far from the regulation, coming from Professor Iledari. You can find the details on page 5. EFCC releases ex-governor Otom after 10 hours grilling. 6,221 Nigerian doctors lost to UK in 6 years, says International College of Surgeons. And still on presidential poll, Tinubu opens defense June 30. Atiku will be closed cases on Friday. You can find the details on page 9. We have columns on page 16 by Baba Ahmed, one from Baba Lola on page 23, and for sport on page 39, Umune Kafini, the front runner to replace Pesero. You can find the details inside the paper. We still have a picture story showing Roberto Kun decorated acting IGP, and that's all the news on the Vanguard newspaper.
On First News newspaper with a big story: like a lion, I'm ready to devour Nigeria's enemies. With the writer following that story says, newly sworn in IGP Egbetuku boasts as the VP Sheitima decorates him at presidential villa in Abuja. Immediate past IGP backs Egbetuku, so we hope to see more synergy coming from the incoming and also outgoing IGP. Other story on the First News, we have Tinubu's victory, Obi demanding non-existent document against president, coming from the INEC. Obi versus Tinubu, Labour Party rep who described president as intelligent, spark fresh rule. Board dissolution, Tinubu exempt NAFDAC and NDLEA. We remember he has dissolved some and MDAs and also some, so we've seen that part of the people that have not been dissolved is that of the NDLEA and NAFDAC, because of course a lot of work still needs to be done. So you read more detail of that story inside the paper. Autumn release after 10 hours grading by EFCC opens up on arrests. Ogun Assembly re-elect Olumo Speaker, Ajayi Deputy Speaker. You can find detail of that story inside the paper. And we have on the tribunal unsorted documents stole PDP Atiku's petition against Tinubu as petitioners close case against president election on Thursday. Ex-governors who are new godfathers in their states. You want to know who they are and what they do and how they influence the governance. You do well to get more detail of that story inside the paper. Emifede's enforcement of rights suit, court fixed July 13 for ruling. And UK to cut down tariff on products from Nigeria. So you read detail of that story inside the paper. And that's all on the First newspaper. But before we move further, Richard, I love the spirit coming from the IGP, and I hope to see that also coming from other service chiefs that have been replaced from those ones that have been retired. And of course it's not new, just like I said yesterday, this is not something we see new. For every administration you have your own people you work with, and then I believe that immediately when we had the president, possibly is the fact that some of the serving chiefs were already preparing to leave. And I love the synergy, especially coming from that outgoing IGP, saying that he's going to work with the present acting IGP. And we need to see a synergy because we know basically the police are those who are actually involved with the internal security of any country. The army have no business whatsoever, if not because of the things we see that are happening, the insurgents, Boko Haram, where the military had to be involved in it. We know that basically the police are supposed to be the ones to actually work internally to secure lives and property. So we hope to see the spirit coming, because of course Nigerians are not really shook by all of this appointment. What they want to do, or what they want to see, just like I said, is the fact that they need you to walk the talk. Talk is cheap, we always say that, but then how are you going to effect that? We said we want to see them moving in the same speed that the president is actually moving. And I love the fact that if you see the way the president addressed things, like he started with the economy and then he went with the security. So we're hoping to see other sectors being touched as well, because definitely if he's going to touch the economy and leave the security, we know that there's no how the economy of Nigeria will thrive when there's insecurity. So of course it's important that you address the security alongside the economy so that Nigerians can be free. You remember we have one of these callers who called in to say that his prayer and his desire for Nigeria is that the economy become very, very the economy should be favorable, the environment should be favorable, so that Nigerians will have an enabling environment to be able to work and contribute their own quota to the GDP of Nigeria. Of course, from the paper, we've seen that from the Surgeons Association, we're seeing that we're losing over 6,000 doctors possibly was it every year or so, they said, in 6 years. So you could see that a lot of things need to be done to make sure that the economy of Nigeria is favorable. Because when these two things are being addressed, we begin to see that in a matter of time, the transport sector will be fixed. In a matter of time, the educational sector, it's already fixed, because we saw the student loan. So it's another thing that the president is looking into. So we really congratulate all of the serving chiefs that are coming in. But we hope, it is our desire, that they take Nigerians alongside, and then we'll see them walking the talk at the end of the day.
Yes, and as exciting as the fire may look coming from the president down to the people he has appointed, we are waiting for the results, Sally, because in as much as there are so many policies, down from the economic policy to the security, we are yet to start seeing results. However, it's too early for us to start seeing results. We love the enthusiasm coming from every office holder, starting from the president, but I am looking forward to results. No economic decisions that have been taken so far have yielded. It's still where it is. There's still the hardship, there's still inflation, there's still our naira devaluing, there's still fuel pump prices going high, and all of that. So I'm looking forward to where we are hoping, Sele, that these decisions are right, that 3 months down the road, 6 months now, we're talking about short term, that we will start seeing a significant change. But yes, we love the fire, Sele. We cannot say no. We have to give thumbs up to the president and the people that are going to work with him now for the fire. Now what Nigerians are hoping and waiting is that truly these decisions that have been made will yield positive results. And when we see that these policies or these decisions that have been implemented are not giving result, I hope that the president will be sensitive to quickly make something new, because I keep saying it, we are not running a rigid system here. It should be flexible. When you see things are not working the way they should be, it should be corrected immediately. So yes, a thumbs up to every appointed person in the office and the president for being out there and putting fire on every issue. We're just praying and hoping that we will start seeing the result of all of this work.
Of course, Rachel. Well, let's move to the next paper.
On Nigerian News Direct, public service cleanup, Tinubu appoint ex-AIG Odumosu as acting EFCC chairman. I am ready to devour all internal enemies of Nigeria, new IGP boast. Tribunal judgment imminent as PDP Atiku closed case against Tinubu on Thursday. The big story on Nigerian News Direct: behind DSS bars, MFS fade hands as court extends ruling till July. There's subsisting order for his detention coming from the federal government, lawyers telling the court stakeholders link political undertone to his suspension and detention. You can find the details on page 3. At the downside of the paper, CIB and KBMG highlight benefits of petrol subsidy removal. Dangote orders back awards at Afrimix Bank Pan-African Business Development Award. Manufacturers query introduction of 7.5% value added tax on diesel. You can find the details inside the paper, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. Dollar trade at discount against Naira in the black market. You can find detail of that story inside the paper. Like Nigeria, foreign airlines warn Ethiopian over the $95 million stock fund and consequences. The big story here say digital switch over factors. 29 states remain on analog, and you can see a picture story showing some of the states, so you can do well to read more detail of how this digital switch will actually affect your state on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Sowore spent 40 million naira on presidential poll, challenges APC others to declare campaign expenses. Still on the presidential election tribunal, Atiku Abubakar PDP to close case against Tinubu's election Thursday. Shaitima decorates the acting IGP Egbetuku. You can find that on page 7. EFCC squeeze ex-Benue Governor Autumn over alleged misappropriation. Court fixed July 13 for judgment in Emifele's suit against federal government. You can find that story on page 5, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, federal government votes 24 billion naira for 10 National Assembly members' accommodation. Naira closes 756 naira per dollar at trading raises at official window. State external debt rises to 3 trillion naira. You can find the details on page 17. And the big story, new service chiefs, 100 military generals may be retired. The writer following the story, retirement girl to hit Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast 37, others may be affected. Shetima decorates acting IG Abeteku at Baba back successors to succeed. You can find the details on page 2. MFL's detention backed by court order, says DSS. Flood sacks residents from Ogun communities. PDP holds reconciliation party, Wike others absent. You can find the details on page 27, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, coming from Imo State, PDP accuses defected SWC members of mismanaging 1.4 billion naira campaign fund, where we have Anyawu Okorocha reportedly in unholy deal. You can find detail of that story on page 9. The big story, PDP's reconciliation talk suffer setback. Atiku, governors Wike, orders absent. We all contributed to the outcome of the 2023 poll, says party stakeholders. You can find all of that on page 6. I feel like Tiger ready to chase away all criminals, coming from the acting IGP. Cardinal Onyeka hails change of service chief, with the writer asks Tinubu to change security structure. You can find detail of that on page 26. Editors committed to defense of democracy, press freedom. This is coming from the NGE. You find detail of that story on page 6. RMAFC won 36 state assembly to amend relevant laws. EFCC grills releases Autumn after 10 hours over alleged misappropriation of funds. Emifele knows fate July 13. Coming from Enugu Guber, Tribunal dismisses Naji petition against Mba. You can find that story on page 6. And we have a Atiku PDP close case challenging Tinubu's victory, with the writer again lament difficulty in getting documents from INEC. Downside of the paper, NEITI praises Tinubu's determination to end subsidy regime. You can find detail of that on page 2. We have a picture story where we have President Bola Ahmed Tinubu with Secretary to the Government of Federation, George Akume, Chief of Staff Femi Bajabiamire, Governor Hope Ozodinma of Imo State, and then at Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport shortly before the president left for Paris to attend the Global Finance Pact Summit yesterday, which we know that will be starting tomorrow. So we hope that he comes with some relevant and also ways that we can improve our own, economy here in Nigeria. And that's all on the Daily Sun newspaper.
On New Telegraph newspaper, Nigeria earned 138 billion naira in July as gas market shifts to Asia. We have a writer that says oil price crashes to $70 per barrel. Naira witnesses first convergence at official parallel market. This is still on Forex, and you can find the details on page 25. On presidential polls, Atiku PDP to close case against Tinubu tomorrow. Tinubu appoints retired AIG Odumoso as new EFCC chairman. Court fixes July 20th for judgment in Kanu's application seeking access to medical records. You can find the details on page 5. And the big story on New Telegraph, airfares to double on international routes as IATA issues new tickets to airlines at 770 naira per dollar. New monetary policy to solve airlines' $800 million trap funds. You can find more of the details on page 7. Federal government exempts NDLEA NAFDAC boards from dissolution order. Court to rule on Emefiele's right enforcement suit July 13. Olumo re-elected Ogun Assembly Speaker. We are all to be blamed for 2023 poll loss, PDP tells stakeholders. You can find the details on page 3. Still on New Telegraph, EFCC invites grills ex-Benue Governor Otom for 9 hours. At the downside of the paper, we have a study: gas stoves can emit chemical linked to cancer. The details can be found on page 7, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
A new national star, Emefiele, planning to flee Nigeria, DSS alleged. You can find that on page 2. Airfare triple as exchange rate hit 702 naira per US dollar, which you can find on page 16. EFCC squeeze releases ex-Benue Governor Otom over corruption allegation. The big story: new minimum wage ready early August. You can find detail of that on page 19. Court remands 7 Yoruba Nation agitators over inversion of Ibadan radio station. You can find detail of that story inside the paper. Lagos court sentences man to life imprisonment for raping girlfriend, which is from the Human Angle. You can find that on page 12. Election Tribunal, Atiku closes case tomorrow. I feel like lion ready to divorce, says the IGP declares war on criminals. Airtel targets $700 million investment in Nigeria as new FX policy breaks. And we have Tinubu return Hajj Commission Nema to VP's office. You can find all of that on page 6. We still have the picture story showing, the president as he embarked on his, trip for the global summit in France. And you can find detail of all of the story inside the paper. And that's all the new national star.
On Nigerian Tribune, Atiku PDP lament difficulties in getting documents from INEC, close case against Tinubu's election tomorrow. 2 years after NNPCL's auto gas program drags. You can find the details on page 7. The big story: Atiku G5 governors absent as PDP molds reconciliation. Party stakeholders meet, review 2023 elections. You can find the details on page 4. After 10-hour grilling, EFCC grants Otom bail. Tinubu approves return of Nema Nakon to VP's office. And at the downside of the paper, Emefiele challenges detention by DSS, seeks 500 million naira damages. Police arrest nurse, 2 others over baby missing placenta. This is happening in Ondo. You can find the details on page 28, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Right, let's take a look at the next paper, which is this day newspaper. And on this day, we have 6,221 Nigerian doctors lost to the UK in 6 years. International College of Surgeons reveals, where the writer says over 40 million Nigerians find it difficult to see doctor. And I would like us to talk a little about it, even though I pinched while I was making analysis. And this is not the first time we're beginning to hear this. I think it was even more severe last year, where each time on our papers we're being reminded of the numbers of doctors that we lose yearly or possibly every month. And then here we're seeing that we've been given total that in 6 years we've lost over 6,221 Nigerian doctors. And then if you look at it, it said Nigerians, over 40 million Nigerians find it difficult to see a doctor. And you will agree with me that it has been difficult lately for Nigerians to have access to doctors. Number one is either hospitals are on strike, especially looking at our state hospital, and then very few Nigerians will be able to afford to go to the private hospital. Of course, everything right now has skyrocketed. So you would agree with me that if we're seeing that even value-added tax has been added to our diesel, which is about 7.5%.
Yeah.
So that is to say, for instance, if you were buying possibly maybe let's say a liter at 600 naira, for instance. So if you're going to add 7.5, you'll be buying it for over maybe 700 and something, or even 800 naira, because you have to pay all of those things. And this is even beyond the diesel, because I think eventually it will affect other commodities and other services. And so I think it is important that we take a look at what can we do. You remember we said that, of course, that bill was being banned from the House, where they say that medical doctors couldn't go abroad. So we can stop Nigerians from leaving. But then what can we do to see that the environment is enabling for them, of course, to practice? Because one of the reasons is either allowances are not being paid. Now we know they are always at the forefront when it comes to attack or any contagious disease, because sometimes they don't even know what it is, and then quickly you just want to do something, and then before you realize it, you are being affected by it. We remember the likes of Ebola, we've lost doctors. The COVID, we've lost doctors. Talking about Lassa fever, we've lost doctors. We are having monkeypox, of course. So these are things that before you realize it, you get affected by it. And so I hope that what will the government be doing at a point like this, for it to make it to our papers, that is, means that it is alarming, and we need to address the underlying issue that is resulting to our doctors leaving. We're just talking about doctors, but yes, if we talk about other professionals that have left the country, talking about teachers, talking about architects and the likes of it. So we're looking forward to a time where on the papers we begin to see how can we even make money out of this. Because you remember, Richard, we have countries that, yes, their doctors are actually in another country, but they make revenue out of their doctors being there. The revenue is being sent down to the country. Are we having a system like that? Because it's one thing for us to keep setting policies. Let's not do this. Let us do this. When the implementation has been zero, we always have difficulty implementing it. So what are some of the steps we can say, okay, let us have this. How can we help our doctors? How can we put this, even going beyond even the health sector to even other sectors? What can we do to make sure that the environment is actually enabling? So I'm looking for, okay, just like you said, it's too early to start asking for certain things, but I think it's not early to set our government representative on their tool of what they need to do. We hope to hear bills that are making sense that will be passed, not bills like detergent that will be used. We just saw the money that will be used for accommodation.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that need their attention, but we just hope that in as much as they are taking their time one step at a time, but I hope that we don't have so much time on our hands. So let us address the issues that need to be addressed immediately.
Sally, all I see is damage, but I don't see damage control being put in place. Now, whether we like it or not, as it stands now, we've lost these 6,000 plus doctors. They're not coming back, because Sally, nobody will gain a 300,000 naira job and go back to a 50,000 naira job. So as it stands now, we're not going to get back these 6,221 doctors. What is breaking my heart is that I'm not seeing the measures put in place to make sure that we are not losing more, that we're not having more doctors go. We see them coming back from strike and their demands are not still being met, because we had it on the papers. They are going on strike because they've made demands and it haven't been met, and these things are still there. We've not seen any big drastic measures being taken to make sure these doctors are not going. And what is happening to these countries is that they are needing the doctors because they know the importance of the doctors. So they don't care if we keep having our doctors going over to them. And for this research to be coming from the College of Surgeons, we are looking at experts in certain fields, surgeons who are expert with heart, probably with the lungs, probably with brain. We are having such people also leaving Nigeria. So I am seeing a damage, because this is the result of what should have been done 10, 20 years ago. And this is the result now. This is the reaction that we are getting from the doctors, because they have been making demands for years. They didn't just wake up 2 years ago to make this has been a struggle for years in the country, and this is the result of their appeal not being met. Let me put it like that. So I'm seeing damage, but then I'm not seeing damage control from the federal government, and it's you waking up, coming head on with whatever the situation is, putting things in place that will make a doctor that is currently sitting down at home or in their office thinking or have opened one visa application site and to reconsider leaving the country. Now, these are the measures that we want to see the federal government taking, but as it stands now, perhaps on the ground, but if the strike and the threat have been on the paper, then I believe the government should also come out and say these are the measures we've taken to make sure that our doctors don't leave, that any doctor that was reconsidering leaving the country last week, today is saying, okay, you know what, I can stay, the government wants me to stay. So this is what I'm hoping to see from the federal government of Nigeria.
Of course, Rachel, this is really something, because it breaks my heart when back then, I remember when we had a report that said 10,000 patients to a doctor. So it now takes my mind back, okay, how many doctors do we have in every state? We're talking about surgeons. So that is to say that if for example, you need a heart transplant, they have to start thinking of which flying you from one state to another. Exactly. And this is really alarming. So we hope something will be done. Well, Rachel, I think let's take a break. And when we come back, we continue with the paper review and also open the phone lines for you to air your views and stories of interest to you. Please stay tuned.
Is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday, 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice.
Thanks for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on Echo Television International. We've been looking at various stories on the paper from the Presidential Tribunal, where we have the PDP to close tomorrow and then the Labour Party to close on Friday, and then Tinubu to open up his case by June 30th. Also coming from the College of Surgeons, we've seen that we've lost over 6,000 doctors, leaving the country in the last 6 years. And also we've seen that the acting IGP have declared one criminal that he has been dressed. So a lot of stories are on the papers. We'd love to hear what your takes are, what your thoughts are concerning stories are on the paper. Please do remember to turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us, because we are really interested in what you have to say, and it will be very difficult to hear you if your TV set is on or the volume is actually high. So you please help us by turning down the volume of your TV set. And remember, you have limited time to actually air your views, as other callers will be, lining up to also air their views. So you do as well by reducing, the volume, and also by, taking at least 30 seconds or at most 1 minute to actually air your views. I still have Rachel Tanzi with me in the studio. Thanks so much, Rachel. All right, I think before we go to the paper, we have one comment that dropped on Facebook, and I would like to take that comment coming from Adam Jemima. He said, it's a she. Jamima Adama, she said, keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Jamima, for that beautiful comment. And then before the calls come in, as I said, our numbers are displayed on your screen. We'll continue with the paper review. And before we went on the break, we're looking at This Day newspaper, and I will continue with the story on this day. PDP's review committee says Atiku won presidential poll waiting on tribunal. You can find that on page 12 of This Day newspaper. All right, we have a call. All right. Yeah, we are with you. Yeah. Good morning, sir.
Okay. Hello, good morning,
Morning.
Mrs. Sele. Good morning, Richard.
Good
It's
morning.
Sam again. I call from Buari,
All right, go ahead,
okay, to
please.
contribute to your press review this morning. And I want to start with the declaration of war by the IGP over criminals. Yes, it's good to hear that. But Nigerians, we want action to be the one speaking, not vow. Because if it is vow, Buhari is legendary. Buhari vowed to deal with everything, but nothing was dealt with. So we will just let his actions speak for him. Uh, then the EFCC agreed autumn, or several hours. We want this campaign against corruption not to be selective. We all know the postures of autumns and the APC since 2015, federal government since 2015. So we will all will be watching to make sure to see that this anti-corruption drive of the EFCC is not selective, is not picked, that is go around, because we the citizens know who have stolen our money. Then the lamentation of the LP over INEC. INEC seem to be very, very uncooperating. They think they can also rig this tribunal outcome. It's not possible. You can delay. We know that this law legal battle is time bound. But if you refuse to bring this material at the level of a appeal court, INEC must remember that there's still 2 months in the Supreme Court, and they will have to bring some of those materials. And again, looking at the public court of opinion, INEC should be able to know that Nigerians are all watching. And finally, on the increases in social services, this is where my concern lies most. The government, Tinubu can do well to be able to help Nigerians, since he's now giving body language and everything that he really wants to build the country, irrespective of what will come from the tribunal. That the various costs of social services being increased by the government agencies and public, they should stop. Nigeria, you cannot crush these people. We are not even done with the petroleum subsidy that have a ripple effect on every aspect of life. We are not done with that. You have the electricity and virtually everything that is coming up. They should know that there is a limit. The human patient is like is elastic, like a rubber. There's a limit to which it can cut. We pray that we do not get to that point.
Amen.
Thank you. I do have a
Thank
money
you so much.
review.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Sam. Still on this day newspaper, we have coming from Egbetuku, I feel like lion ready to devour criminals. You can find that story on the front page and on page 10. Naira achieves convergence as official. Parallel rate closed at 715. I take that story. Naira achieved convergence as official. Parallel rate closed at 756 Naira with the rider. CBN holds quotation of offer rate of Naira settle OTC Forex future contract eyes further reform. Finch forecast, all right, we think we have another, okay.
Is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you for that call. Still on this day newspaper, Fitch forecast nation currency to end 2023.
Hello, all of you
Good
selling
morning,
in that
sir.
studio.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Hello.
We are with you, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. I want to just give kudos to Mr. Sam. I think it's not supposed to be Sam again. It's supposed to be Solomon because of his wisdom, which God has blessed him so well. And I continue to pray for him of his upliftment. You understand? So in fact, when he comes to analyze, he analyzes everything that no one, at least nothing to contribute anymore. In fact, thank you very much. And I really like the way that Atiku has to drop, at least preparing to drop the case, because he knew that he can't win presidency in this country anymore due to his past record. Thank you.
Thank you so much to that Carter for your insightful comments. Still on this day newspaper, we have predict CBN policy rate to slump by 150 BPS to 17% by year end. And we have project petrol subsidy removal to trigger inflation in neighboring countries. You can start reading the story on the front page and continue on page 10. Federal government exempt NDLEA NAFDAC board from dissolution. And we have the picture story, Airtel founder visit Tinubu. You can do well to grab the paper and know what the discussion was all about. And that's all on this day newspaper.
On Business Day newspaper, Securities and Exchange Commission fails to publish own financial report in 8 years. The big story, high expectations as Tinubu assembles security team. DSS presents...
Right, sorry, let's take this call. Good morning, sir. All right, we lost that call. Hope you got us back, please.
DSS presence at Lagos Airport slows passenger traffic. You can find the details inside the paper on page 28. We have UBA signs $6 billion AFCFTA Pact 2 climate trade barriers. Numbers of Nigerians moving to Canada hits 9-year high. You can find the details on page 21, and that's all the news on Business Day newspaper.
Has done, and we want him to work for us seriously because honestly. Hello, ma'am.
I'm with
Yes,
you.
we
Go
can
ahead,
hear
please.
you.
Hello.
I am with you. Please go ahead.
Hello, ma'am.
Can you hear me? I'm with you. Please go ahead. All right.
Hello, ma'am.
I think there is a network problem. Please end the call and call us
Yes,
back
ma'am.
again.
So what I'm saying is that
Okay.
the IG, honestly, the new IG, we want him to work seriously. Like here in Nasarawa State, we have a lot of kidnappers, especially the Nasarawa Igon, as is in our state here, because we want him to work for us seriously, ma'am. So thank you very much, ma'am.
All right, thank you. You know,
Thank
every
you.
state have their own insecurity that is peculiar to the state. So we hope the IGP will get his men to get working in all these places that insecurity is. Thank you so much to that caller. Let's take a look at Nature newspaper, where we have Tinubu call for stronger cooperation with U.S. in pursuit of clean energy transition. You can start reading the story on the front page and continue on page 5. And we have Acrisel stakeholders advocate women's right to own agricultural land, and we hope to see, we see them owning lands in various places.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you come down the northern part, it seems as the women are mostly the ones, even in the farmland. So we see that this is not out of place when we hear people advocating for women's right to own an agricultural land. So we hope to see how this will unfold. Still on Nature News, we have on fuel subsidy, federal government gives 6 companies approval to import petroleum products. You can find on page 5. NAFDAC crackdown on illegal herbal products. You can find on page 11. NERC plans smooth green transition in Nigeria's power sector. And we have experts encourage farmers to plant early maturing seed amid erratic rains. You can find that on page 6. OGFZA call for host community support for businesses in free zones. And we have heart healthy drinks. If you want to know what that means, you check more of that story on page 15. We also have another story for our sport lovers on page 21, so you can do well to get the Nature News and read details of stories that of interest to you.
On Sporting Sun, I deserve to win 2023 Ballon d'Or award, a statement coming from Mbappe. You can find the details at the back page. Inter Miami targets July 21 for Messi debut. Coming from Saka, I will remember England hat-trick for the rest of my life. Neymar performs U-turn on PSG exit. Chelsea complete Nkoku's 6-year deal. Kane's secret PSG talk unsettles Man United. The big story on the paper, NFF wants Pesero to take $70,000 monthly pay cut. Omuneke Finidi front runner to replace Portuguese. You can find the details on page 6. Rice experts to join Arsenal in 10 days' time as Gunners offer club record €105 million for England star. Gundogan rejects City proposal at Guardiola begs. You can find the details inside the paper. Villarreal opens transfer door for Chukwueze. Rangers insurance queens Angels light up Asaba. Venus Williams gives opponent death stare. You can find the details at the back page. Napoli willing to listen to big offers for Osimhen. And that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
Right, let's see what's happening at our oil sector on Sweet Crew reports. Oil firms pay 71.6 billion naira as gas flaring penalty in 2022. This is a report. You can find detail of that story on the front page and continue to read more inside the paper. And we have Nigeria's oil output hits 1.18 million barrels per day, regains position as Africa's biggest producer, with the rider Army claims credit for the rise in production. I think this is not a time to start taking credit, but a time to keep it up. We remember in our papers where we saw that Angola is beginning to heat up. So we have to do something by, keeping our eyes open and making sure that we don't have issues of oil theft again, taking the lead as it was last year down to the beginning of this year. So we hope to see more works being done and not just credit being taken.
Because it's not even a win yet, Sele. What OPEC needs from us is 1.8 million barrels per day. So we're still far behind. So let's keep the hype and just keep working hard.
True. Still on Sweet Crew report, we have Dangote Refinery and EITI seek clarification on NNPC 20% stake. You can find more of that story inside the paper. Mossop demands severe penalty against Shell over incessant oil spill. Company confirmed latest spill in early May. You can find more stories of that and more inside the paper. And that's all on the Sweet Crew report and also how far we can go on the program this morning. Thanks so much,
You're
Rachel, for
welcome,
doing this with
Sally.
me. Thank you to all our callers for calling this morning to air their views. Thank you to the crew members. Thank you to our producer, the general manager, and the Echo executive. Thank you to our supporters who have been supporting us all these years. Thank you so much. Until we come here again, do have a blessed day ahead.